Hey guys, this is Iamvanguard's Cardfight Vanguard podcast here with Domino Paris and Sean. So, hello.
What's up, guys? Been a while.
Hey, how's it going? YouTube Domino Paris. Just kidding. Waiting image here.
You cannot match
So
my
it's
voice.
been a while. So how? Quick update on everyone. What have you guys been up to for the past few weeks that we haven't done podcast?
It's just kind of typical stuff. Set six came out. There's a few things that I put together. It's a little bit. I think it's a little bit of the dry spell or dry period in Vanguard. I think like
Yeah,
right
the
now
break
until
set. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like the calm before the storm until set seven and later comes out that
Oh,
really will shake up the meta.
Sagra meta, and then
Yeah.
possible blowing the Myra cancer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it, but like everything's kind of being pretty stagnant right now, which I think is fine. Save some money, save
Yep,
some money
for
from
sure.
like buying cards, take a break from locals a little bit. We all gotta wind down a little bit, but I don't know. What about you guys?
How about
I've
you,
just been
Dom?
testing premium. I've just been testing premium, trying to do plan the next phase of my premium series, but also like cooking with Raging Form. That deck is so freaking versatile.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool things. I'm
You had one?
testing Raziel in Raging
Uh,
Form, and I'm like, that's
ooh,
sauce. Yeah,
Interesting.
that's
oh,
actually sauce.
that is pretty sick. I have to see that later.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, for me, like I'm kind of on a stop-ish state because I haven't really like updated any decks for set six. I did pick up Raziel, which is the most, I guess, interesting thing for Vanguard, at least, and I've been like testing Raziel a lot for the past like couple weeks, ever since I picked up the deck. So it's a pretty fun deck for standard. At least like it's something that I wanted to play, so I think I'm a bit more motivated to play it. And I know that there was Puerto Rico today, actually, today and yesterday, I believe. I know
Yeah,
that a
this
lot
past
of
weekend.
the players from Kingslayer's Gaming or was there, right?
Yeah, one of
I
them
believe
won it.
so.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, they won. I think
Congrats.
there was like first and second, I believe, too, because the person in second place was William Garcia, which is like kind of related to the guy that works there. So
Oh, okay.
just small research. But yeah, so set six has been out for about 2-3 weeks. What do you guys take on set six?
You could go first, Gabe.
Sean
Set
doesn't
six is
know,
kind
that's
of like
why.
a no. Set six is kind of like a supplementary set. As I say, nothing. I mean, there were some nice cards in there. If you play Chronos Command for Jet, I thought was good addition. I actually just put together Chrono Jet, for that. And Messiah has propelled itself up to be a meta deck, I guess you could say, just with the addition of was it Lady Battler, and then a new Stride.
The new Messiah.
And yeah, and then I think like when it comes to like I really just kind of call these supplementary sets where it's nothing that's going to be too meta inducing necessarily, but it's just going to just supplement everybody, maybe a little something for everyone. Like there are now the Soul Front triggers that are in there now, which can give some better expanded options for certain decks, and a new Regalis piece and encounter decks. Like there's going to definitely be support for the encounter decks, but I think because it's like focused hard on encounter decks and then two like stride decks. It's really whether you have these decks and you care about these or you don't. And I don't. I think comparatively, people are just waiting for the more meta breaking decks like Pop Sagra and such later, which I think are going to be more defining set seven. So set six is a little bit of a quiet set. I won't say it's like a bad set, but it's a little bit of a quiet set.
And very ironically, it's like actually right before Worlds, that a set like this came out. So I think I don't know if it's planned, right? But I feel like that these kind of
I'm sure it
things
is.
kind of is planned out because if a set comes out that will break the meta before Worlds, I feel like that would affect a lot of things for them. So maybe these kind of sets are purposely tended to come out before like Worlds is what I feel like because I feel like that last year was kind of similar. I believe I think this was like Divines came either right after Worlds or like on the week of Worlds or something. So I know that they purposely like switch over these kind of sets, like a break set, so the meta is like not too broken, or like
Mhm.
it doesn't lean towards the new deck, so where the new players or the players that make it to Worlds need to play test. It's just kind of my thought process why like these sets are always around this time, and because I feel like that it's always been the same. Like around like before Worlds, like it's always like the timing that there's always a supplementary sets that come out, which definitely doesn't affect the meta too widely, but like it's there to support decks that want it to be played. So that's just how I take on it. Set six in general, there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun decks. Like you mentioned that there isn't really anything that's meta breaking, but decks like Maelstrom is really exciting because that got our buddy Cardfight came back into Vanguard actually. So that's like a good way to get older players back into the game. Now because of these encounter cards coming out, we can start making speculations of what encounter decks are still need to be printed, what are going to be coming out, and I would say the Fire Regalis definitely ups a lot of decks, and then some of the encounter decks upgrades all these older decks like Overlord or Vermilion was another example, and then obviously we were just talking about it. Maelstrom, it gets a nice update on it as well, and then obviously the Stride decks. The first two Stride decks that come out from the set definitely gets a boost. Gear Chronicles, I would say like it's a bit more like just an extra support. I wouldn't say like it brings the deck up to a certain meta. Messiahs is probably the only one that gets slightly affected in the meta slot. I would say like it's a little bit better before like Balsagra or like the new Blankdemire would come out, but I feel like that overall like Messiah will be one of those decks that will be a bit more affected in this kind of set versus everyone else. So yeah, I think overall like it's just a support set, or I would say like a break set where they're like it kind of gives players a break on sets, but they also need to
Yeah.
make sure that they make money. So obviously for that purpose they add in like signed
Right.
energies, stuff like that, so people still buy their products. So I think it's
Yeah.
a very smart way of them marketing their items. Is they know that they're not gonna sell the set because of the fact that the cards in that set is not good. So they would go ahead and add like all these nice fancy energies that people are forced to buy cases and such. So yeah, it's a nice break set overall.
Well, as a Tamayura truther, I'm just kidding.
Same.
I love actually most of the glitter decks, and I'm glad they got support.
Yep,
But
glitter
like
decks
you're
got
you're
support.
right, David. It's a break set. None of the cards really game break for anything. They make the decks a lot better, I will say. Like to at least give them the edge to at least compete in this format right now, this mid-range meta that we're in. In fact, I think Roroa and Tamayura actually get the biggest benefit from it. I'm not sure 100%
Ava
about the
Ava gets a support too in this set, right? And I think
yeah,
Ava is
Ava too.
somewhat
Yeah.
relevant, I believe, because of that
Yeah,
card.
yeah, I think all three of those decks mentioned are pretty good. I think Chaos Chris will find a way to break it. Uh,
I mean, Chaos is
uh,
always the same. Like it's like you get your 13 cards in the soul by your grade 3 turn, and your opponent's at grade 2, you win.
yeah, yeah. So there's some good cards in this
Yeah.
set. It's not a bad set by any means, but it's just like one that I'm like, oh, cool. Let me just pick up my playset of Tamayura cards and
Yeah.
call it a day.
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
what's it called? Fire Gauss is actually pretty insane. I think that card's actually like really freaking good.
So let's
So
talk
I'm
about it,
I
excited to
think
right?
see.
so too. I think so
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I'm pretty curious to see where it's gonna fit.
I don't
But
think it's
like Vanguard
insane
T,
though. Like I know
Vanguard
that
T,
you think it's insane, but I personally think like it's an okay card. But it could be because the decks I play don't really require them. So that's probably why I can't like agree on that aspect of being it like insane. I would say like it's decent. But like I said, it could be because of the decks I play. Because Gabe also really likes the Fire Regalis in his Overlord, but he also has choices of where he's not running the Fire Regalis in his decks.
Like
So yeah,
it's better. I think it's more so that I'm leaning more towards Sean take where it's better than what people gave it credit for
hmm
because it's a very because as we know with Regardless pieces, right? So in the beginning, when we first got them, it started with the cup, right? Okay, it's a Persona ride or whatever. It's kind of like it's beneficial, but it's kind of generic, which is good. But eventually, when something comes out that's a little bit more niche and can cater to a more specific deck, that's where the value comes in. Because right now with Fire Regardless, I mean, people, I feel like, especially with a lot of people I talk with, they read it and they say, "Oh, it says glitter." Well, most decks are not glitter that I care about, so this card is useless. But no, I don't think so, right? Like so for the reason with Overlord, right? I think Phyla Regalis is like the best one for Overlord. Is the best Regalis piece for Overlord, arguably, because you are playing drag. I at least I play Drag Resonance, the grade 3 normal order in my deck, 3 of them, and I'm looking to and Vermilion I think too as well. In addition, it's same ordeal because I am looking to play order almost every turn if I have them. Vermilion can service them out. And the thing is, like with Fire Regalis, you don't actually play the card. You actually remove it, whether it's in your hand or drop. So it could be a free discard target, and you could still use it for the same exact benefit, and it doesn't overlap or interfere with the order limit per turn because you're not actually playing it. You're just removing it as a cost. And it even says it in the continuous. This card cannot be played. So any deck that basically relies on playing order or product cards during your turn and like obviously it limits your choices because you can't play like Angel Ladder easily or whatnot. So then the next choice is just play like Twin Cast, like play a Blitz Order or something like that. But if you don't really think you want to play the Blitz Order or something and you want something that can help like it contribute to your core deck strategy, like Regalis is still good. It means even if you don't have a glitter card, like top five, it's just basically check top five, call something, call anything basically from it. And if you don't want to call anything, and if you miss or whatever, you just draw a card. It's a free draw. Because again, from the drop zone, so you like use it as a discard target or something, and then it can just be a free draw for you later. So it's kind of like a hidden cycler in a way that's free.
Right, right.
Um, so it has good it has a good use case for particular decks like I described. So I don't think it's like a useless card, but it is catered to specific decks that can really like maximize the value that it offers for the reasons I mentioned.
Right, right. And that's what I was trying to say is that I don't like I still like would kind of put my opinion that it's not insane where it's like breaking because like that's how people felt about like I mean my mind can change depending on the deck that uses it, but I think it's really like depending on the deck that really needs it. Like for example, I would say what's insane is like cards like Twin Cast that can be played in any deck and it can be used in any deck because that Twin Cast is such a solid card. Like I would say cards like Twin Cast is insane. Like there's no like certain decks need it or not. Like every deck has to play it unless like they have a better option. Is
I
just what
think
I
it's
think.
insane. I think it can be insane for a deck that this card really caters towards.
Right,
Not
right,
a
right,
glitter card, but like if you're a very order slash product
right, right,
heavy deck, I mean this card is actually really good.
right, right. So I mean I think it's really on the depending on the deck. And like I said, Sean, I'm not trying to call you out. That's just it's a podcast, so we talk about these things, right? So
No, no, no. Let me say I use insane a lot and whatever,
it's a typical young person
but
thing.
but
Or
also at the same
diabolical. At least you're not
time,
saying diabolical.
yeah, exactly. At least with this card, like I don't know, I just feel like in a game where deck thinning is everything, playing 49 cards versus 50 in a deck,
Yeah.
and also in a game where deck versatility kind of carries you at points, it's just like yeah,
No,
I
why
like I
agree.
not?
said,
I
it's a good
agree.
card. It's a good card, but
And that's why I think people
yeah.
are. In a way, I mean insane. It's just I've seen so many people just write that card off for whatever reason. I'm just like, why are
Yeah.
you writing?
Oh
It's
no, I
absolutely.
mean definitely don't write it off. Like it's still like a good card.
Yeah, it's
If
like I said, I
Retire
think
wasn't so
really good.
relevant in premium, I would play it in Raging Form just because it's another card to grab Dark Bless off.
Yeah,
So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
The Fire Regalis is good at the set. I would say like the Soul Fronts are definitely something interesting in my opinion, because this is something that Gabe used to always talk about to me is that they should make a Soul Trigger because he was like in favor of playing like decks like DIs, right? So I was like, oh well, maybe it'll happen someday. And it was funny to see that they made it kind of like as an effect trigger instead, which I actually thought was really interesting because I think the Soul Fronts really cater to a lot of the dark state decks mostly because I do play dark states and I do realize that you do need soul for certain things, but at the same time like it's really good in certain decks. Like for example, like Messiahs is a good example, or like I don't know, dark state decks that need the soul, like Barrel Magnus or Kios. It's a really good card. But I still feel like the extra 5K is probably something that most people are gonna still run at this time. So I mean the soul fronts are really good. I think the new encounter decks are really nice too, but unfortunately we don't have a lot of encounter decks out. So the only few people or the only few clans that are abusing the new encounter cards are like Maelstrom or like any of the Keter decks because Keter still has their Keter pile with the new encounter card, which is really good. So I mean, other than that,
Yeah.
like I feel like at the moment, just because there isn't many cards out at the moment, like the encounter decks, these cards are probably gonna be like waived off for a little bit. That's probably why they're like only $5 a piece, except for Bellicosity Dragon, which is gonna be seen immediate use.
I mean,
But
it's
yeah,
definitely has the strongest use case because it is
correct.
actually a game breaking. It's a game essential card. I
Yeah,
mean, really, in summary, like set six, like I said, it's a supplemental set. It's kind of to supplement the side decks in the
yeah.
meta.
I would say don't
For the
sleep
most
on this
part.
set though, because I feel like that a lot of these cards are gonna start coming to bite you if you didn't pick up anything in this set, is what I would say in this
I
podcast.
mean, yeah, you should always like when it comes to these
Pick up your
supplementary
clan,
sets,
yeah.
they always have something that can also be beneficial to everyone or generic enough. So kind of look at it, even like for our Fire Regardless. Even if you think it's bad now, like I said,
Yeah,
there
it's
will
gonna be
be
really good.
specific decks where it's the best. Like I said, Overlord, for example. Even Boss Sagra, like there are Boss Sagra decks that do play Fire Regardless
Yep.
because they, every turn you're pretty much trying to arm yourself with the weapon, which eats up your one order for the turn. So then Fire Regardless can kind of, you know,
I'm not
can
gonna
work
lie,
there if
I
you want
actually
to,
might run
if
the
you want to
Fire
do that.
Regalis in that Brandgate deck coming out in set 7, the Moongate deck. Because
Yeah,
it filters out more cards than it does, so
yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's way better than people think.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's a ton of value in that card, because like even bracing Angel Ladder, like Angel Ladder, like has a specific use case, but when the meta shifts, you may end up just not putting him in your deck.
Yeah, right now
Like
a lot of
you
people are
know,
not playing Angel Ladder anymore. They're playing more Twin Cast, and then I guess like now more people are gonna run Fire Regalis. But I think the reason
yeah,
why Angel Ladder still maintains its value is because of premium format.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
like
it's such a
Yeah, Angel
Angel
Ladder
Ladder
is
will
a
never
whole
be a bad
different.
card.
Yeah, Angel Ladder is a whole different category though. Like I think Angel Ladder
Yeah,
is the wrong type of card. I would say like if we're comparing how we feel about this card, I think it's like what's the card name? Caliburn. Like that's a good example. Like
yeah,
Caliburn, people ran it right away, but then it kind of dropped off. But I feel like the Fire Regalis is gonna be the other way around. Like right now, there isn't gonna be much decks that use it, but on the long term, it is gonna be something that people are gonna be like, oh shit, this is a lot better than I thought. As Sean was saying, this card's insane. So
yeah. It's like I said,
well.
man, like Regalis pieces,
always
they're
have it.
becoming
Yeah.
more, well, they're becoming more refined as new ones come out to
Yep.
have a more niche use case, and that's really the important thing.
Right, right. And
Um,
always have your copies of stuff. Like even if the soul fronts do seem a little pricier than what you were thinking, like I think it's like $5 as a double rare. I mean, still pick it up. Like it's gonna be really good long term. And then right now with the market like not even dropping cards in price, it's if it's cheap, just pick it up. If it's like less than $10, I think it's worth it.
Wait
yeah,
till you get your tax return in, boys.
yeah,
No,
but
but
yeah,
also like just keep in mind, like I speak a lot from premium lines, but also because that card's a grade 3.
Yeah, it's
So
a stride fodder too. Yeah, if you think about it, you can like discard for stride and then use it from the drop and then activate effects. So I mean, it's not a bad card.
yeah. Like say, it's a
yeah.
very versatile, easy to use card. That I mean, filtering a card from your deck is really good, and being able to do it for free and not having it be like a dead card that interferes with you is always always good and worth keeping in your collection.
I was gonna say before we go into our main topics of France and Toronto, there is only 2 weeks left until BCS ends and goes into Worlds. Any thoughts or anything that you guys want to talk about for that? It's about to end, so
End of season, yeah,
yep,
because
end of the
next
season.
week, not, yeah, yeah, actually,
Two
this
weeks, yep,
next coming weekend is going to be Pasadena.
yep.
I was in California like over a week ago, and I kind of decided, I was doing vacation stuff, but I decided last minute not to go back, for it. I'm kind of like done with the season. I did get my top, I got my energy generator, so it's like, I think I'm good. I think I'm good, you
Yep.
know.
No, no, you got your top, so
But
you're good.
this season's, I think it was kind of like as we got closer to set five, right? I think we got a clearer picture that like Levy dress, Odium is going to show up a lot heavily. It's going to be heavily represented. I think there were some nice surprises along the way, and at least it like there still has been enough variety of people making it. It's why I like top 32. Like just the fact that it's top 32, it's just more opportunities to see more variety of people like topping. Versus if it was top eight, I think it would be far different. But I like what they've been doing so far, and I've been very happy with my experiences so far with regionals.
No, that's good. So you know what's really funny is there's been like rankings of players, right? Like so because the fact that you can like kind of pull up the top results, so you can kind of like this deck topped and this person's the one that's been topping with it. Apparently like there's like rankings for it, and I think three of the players here are in the top 50 players in the world, I believe.
Well, that's pretty sick.
That's cool.
Yeah, so obviously you guys already know Peter's. Actually, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think there's two. One's Peter, obviously. The other one is Star, and then the other person is Shervan. Because
Mhm.
Shervan's been topping a lot of events consistently.
Sweet. Yeah. No, you've been doing good.
So yeah, I mean that's just something that a lot of people can be aware of is that having a number of tops matters, but having good quality of tops is also important too.
I am
But
ranked
overall, yeah.
868th. 868th in the world.
Hey, you're ranked. We're not, so you're good.
Yay. Yay. I am top 1,000, so that puts me, out of 1,000 Vanguard players in the world that exist only.
You're higher than
Yeah.
LeBron.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. But how does this affect his legacy?
Yeah. How does this affect his legacy?
All right. So,
Anyway,
do you guys want to
speaking of
talk
regionals,
about France or Toronto? What's more exciting for you guys to talk about first?
let's start with Toronto
Okay.
because that's the first one I have here on my screen.
All right. Let's let's pull that up. Let's look into standard. I know that so this was Toronto was basically a good essential of it kind of gives you like this is the meta. Like I feel like that this is finally the full graph of everyone testing their decks fully of set five, and it's finally showing the actual results or what's actually supposed to should have been winning in the top. And from my knowledge, it was Prison, Levy Dresses, and Sure New in the top four.
Top four,
So
yeah.
yeah, so definitely that was a devastating result. Um because I mean Prison I feel like that no one was really expecting. So I kind of feel like it was a little bit of a curveball there. I mean, I'm not saying
I
Prison's
don't
not
know.
a top material deck, but I think like Prison to win the whole event was a little bit more devastating from my perspective. And the funnier thing is like Blankdenmeyer made fifth place overall as well. So I actually thought this was a little funny.
Well, it goes to what I keep saying is if you just take like variance and randomness out the window, if you just view decks as if this deck is allowed to do 100% what they intend to do, they can be pretty successful. It's just whether or not they can kind of put it all together
Yeah.
through the span of a tournament and deal with the matchups. But like Prison. I wouldn't say I don't think Prison is necessarily like an unexpected deck. People get excited for it because Prison is like one of the older decks in like D format.
Yep.
It's a well respected deck, and people who've been playing long enough, at least through Overdress, they understand what Prison is capable of.
Of course. Yeah.
So I think like when they see like Prison tops, people get excited for it, but it's also like, yeah, like they can also understand why it was successful for its particular day. Like I don't think anyone's gonna say like, oh, it's meta, like one of the best decks, but it can be the best deck at catching people off guard or kind of being that skill check, as we talked with one of our buddies in
Right.
New
Right.
York
It's
who
just
actually
yeah.
top. Yeah, Prison is just one of those decks where it can catch people off guard, and it does immediately force your opponent to play completely different away from their usual strategy. So it can make them very uncomfortable. So if you can make your opponent uncomfortable, there's opportunities to take advantage of. I feel like Blademeyer can be the same way. If Blademeyer is allowed to do what they're supposed to do, and if your opponent makes a mistake against them, they will get punished severely for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, of
So
course. But I
I
keep
think that
saying
makes sense.
like the prison in first place is still like my perspective a little bit of curveball still. Like and I don't disagree with you. I think prison is definitely a top deck material. But going all the way in the ladder, I still think I don't like I mean, I guess like I give it credit, but at the same time I'm just like I don't think it's that good to win the whole event. So that's why like I think
Well,
a lot of people were kind of like
yeah,
really like question mark like really with the
it's like
question mark. I think
they ran well. I guess
yeah
they just ran well
yeah
that
yeah
one time, but
and
clearly
like I said, it's
they're
like
not.
that one time when Varga went all the way and we're just like, you know what, that guy probably had a really good day.
I mean, if you run well, you could make that
Oh yeah,
run. It's more of probability
yeah, of
because if I
course,
had to put money on it, I don't think I definitely would put money that they wouldn't necessarily do it again.
yeah, and I feel like that a lot of the
But congrats to the prison player
yeah,
for winning.
of course, and I would say like I think that was a one of the biggest things with Toronto regionals is the fact that Prison topped, and everything else was kind of expected there. We're probably going to talk about it a little bit later, but sure, Nui is definitely a deck that's going to be more respectable, especially after some of the changes that a lot of the top players been making to Sure Nui. And
Hmm.
then Levy Dress is expected. Like you would kind of see the top. Like if I'm on the top like 10 players right now, it's like 60% is live dress already, so or
I mean,
seventy
that's
Well,
percent.
expected.
Yeah, I mean, which
I
is
was
yeah expected results.
I was just gonna say on that prison note, I just think prison got better in the meta just because
It
like
did.
when prison was doing bad, Leonorn was meta, and that deck hard counters prison hardcore. But since there's
But
like
now that
less,
yeah, Leonore like
yeah,
filters out, yeah, makes sense.
less Leonorn and more decks that rely on their rear guards like Raziel and Lefty Dress, I think prison just takes advantage of that matchup pretty dang well. And a lot of these players, like I said, like you mentioned, Gabe, at these top tables, most of the time they play perfect. But if you could catch them a mistake, prison is one deck that you seriously could take advantage of one singular mistake, just by
Yeah.
sometimes even early in the game putting the
So
wrong card in there.
I can tell you
And you
with
guys,
personal experience, I played Levy into prison. I almost gave the game away because I severely underestimated how easily they could get to 10, and I
yeah,
didn't empty out my prison, and I like obviously like I was familiar like with the general
mhm,
idea of what it does, but I don't know about the micro decisions because I didn't play during overdress. So like I also was like being frantic during my turn because I didn't want to take up too much time, and I think I made like two mistakes, but thankfully I barely got away
right, right.
with it because I just dumped my entire hand, then I talked to Persona, and then I was able to kind of like make plays. But like, but yeah, like it could be something like that because I think even an experienced player, if they're just not, if they could still be rusty in that matchup if they just haven't played against it in a while. So they, yeah, I agree with Sean
I
in that
think the
regard.
yeah.
one deck that I always tend to play against before I go to regionals for standard format probably will be prison. Just because like it's a deck that you're gonna see every single time, and there's gonna be someone that's gonna play it. And if you do not understand that deck's matchup, you are gonna 100% lose, is what I think.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's
I
like
don't
that one
disagree.
deck. And then man, bats are still a thing, and that pisses me off.
Even as a bat player, I hate it.
I mean I hate aggro decks like that. Don't hate me.
I'm so batted out, you have no idea,
It's
dude.
funny because a lot of the YouTubers are actually stating that they should go ahead and ban the grade one that came out
Moflash.
in yeah, Moflash, because they think that that's the main problem of the deck is that making Moflash to get the orders set earlier causes this deck to be really OP, which I don't disagree. I definitely think that this is a deck that's devastating, but I feel like that. I don't know if it's a personal opinion because I don't play decks like Levy Dress that's slower, but I don't think like banning the deck's gonna fix like too much of like what should have been done. Like I feel like that it's a matchup issue. Like you have to understand the matchup. But the bad deck keeps topping from my opinion because people don't know how to counter it properly. But I can see
Well,
why people.
can you really even counter it? Like if it's
Yeah.
actually doing what it's supposed to, I mean, can you even do anything about it?
Hmm.
Or you
No,
mean
you
just like
can't.
counter plus denying them?
Yeah,
You can't.
you damage control them and then you have to grind it out. But it's
But
doable.
then
And you
yeah,
saw
well
me
like
do it
decks
too.
can
Yeah.
yeah, but like your deck is capable, not every deck can do it.
Yeah,
I
but
understand.
in reality, they only need one damage to pop off. So
I don't know, like when it comes to the damage deny, because I know that's like the default thing that people say you can do that, but I'm like, yeah, but then how do you make? But they're still at zero damage. How do you take them from 0 to 6 without like? Because then you're basically giving them an extra turn to deal with, unless you can somehow push the 0 to 6,
You have
which
to push
maybe,
them
but
one by one. Like you can't give them like all like you
too
can't give them
much.
more than like I'm gonna say like 2 damage. You can still give them the 1 damage, but I wouldn't give them more than 2.
Yeah.
Like
Okay,
you
that
have
makes
to
more
yeah
sense.
you have to like slow like you have to hit them little by little. You know you have to hit them with small pebbles first, and then
Yeah.
the thing is the bat player is gonna get impatient.
Hmm.
Cause the thing is, they're also worried about decking out as well. Cause they
yeah,
filtered a lot of cards out. So basically, like if they get desperate, the play that they're gonna do is they're gonna try to use all their orders to kind of see if they can push you or not. And because that you've been collecting your cards slowly and while pushing them, um, they're gonna lose their resources, and that's when you can start pushing them.
Right.
So
Okay.
there's
I
ways
mean
to
that
play
makes sense.
around it. Yeah. It's not it is depending on the deck, but I also think like it's really depending on like the player that pilots bat is are they being patient? Are they correctly playing their matchup if someone is damage denying them? I feel like with the bat deck at least that's gonna be one of the that's gonna be one of the ways to counter it. But is it really ban worthy? I don't know if it's ban worthy. Because ban is
I
a
don't
very
think.
strong word
Yeah,
in Vanguard, and I feel like that setting a ban list for it, I don't know.
Because the thing is, like, aggro decks, control decks, they represent the high lows of a meta,
Yeah,
and like the meta really goes to crap when one of them ends up being the best. Because
the
then,
thing
like
is,
with
yeah.
aggro, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, there's not much you can do about it. And then, yes, there's ways to play around it, but now it's like I have to change my entire core strategy of what I'm trying to do just to just play around this one deck. And then it's like really like
Well, I mean
silly.
that's just
Um,
how like decks like Prison are too. And the thing is like the
but it's not
bat
like
deck.
overbearing in my opinion.
Yeah, Bat Deck is really good because of decks like Levy Dress. Like honestly, if it wasn't Levy Dress, like this Bat Deck wouldn't be as good as you think.
I don't know. I don't really think so because any deck that's slower than turn, I mean, any deck that's like relatively mid range or higher is just gonna get destroyed by that. Like a hyper aggro, generally speaking.
Hmm.
I
It's
don't think
just
they're
the
gonna ban
format
it.
is not as the format is just not as like hyper aggro
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah,
So Bat Deck is kind of like there to help be an equalizer in a
I
way.
agree.
But
Because a lot
if
of
it gets
the
too
channels were
strong,
talking
then
about
it's
banning it. That's why like I was kind of like I don't know if it's ban worthy though. Like I think it's a problem in a way, but like if you still look, like they never win the whole event. Like they are always in the top. the top like 32, but like they're never winning the whole thing.
I mean, I don't really. I personally don't use that. I don't really use that necessarily to justify because,
Mhm.
like in the extreme of things, yes, like if a certain deck is just winning every single time, there's a clear problem, and I mean that's like tier 0 discussion territory. But I think if a deck can be represented
Yeah, yeah.
and be very consistent, but also just be very detrimental to where like, oh shit, if you get paired up against the bat, then you pretty much like auto lose practically because you don't either have that one particular deck that's not widely played that to play pair up against it or whatnot. I mean, I don't know. There's a certain point where like I think a deck can be a little bit too degenerate to where it's
Yeah.
like it doesn't even make gameplay enjoyable. I know like Lock. We always say like Lock was a mistake.
Lock was a huge
Um,
mistake.
Grade Two Gaming.
No Vel was a mistake too.
Novelle was a mistake as much as I love her, but that was a mistake. So it's like
Tier Zero
I
Gears
mean,
was a
there's that.
mistake.
Well, tier 0
Right.
gears end up spawning grade 1 rush, and then
Yeah.
just become and right and then everyone else gets caught in that crossfire because it's like, well, now it's like
We
I'm getting
died to
grade 2
grade one
gamed.
rushed, or we died to
Or
gears.
you so it's like either if I try to stride like I want to, I can't. I lose to gears, but then I end up getting bum rushed I get grade 2 game by grade 1 rush. So it's like if this deck can just be out of the meta, now you know, now there's less crossfire of people getting caught up in this
Yeah,
stupid
yeah, of
crap and
course.
then they can actually play their deck. So I think the goal is to try and make it so that players can comfortably play their decks as intended without being forced to deviate too much. And the thing with the bat deck is not like the bat. I mean, the bat deck is just literally playing solitaire. It's not like they're doing anything interactive. They're just playing solitaire by themselves. So that's not even fun at all
Mm.
to do. So that's another thing too. Because I know with Levy Dress, it's dominant and everything, but at the very least. And I'm not saying that Levy Dress is not like dominant in this era, in this format, but at the very least, it feels like you could still play against it. Like you could still do what your deck is intended to
Mhm.
do, and you don't have to. And yeah, like you can play around markers and everything, but it's not like I'm preventing you from like doing things. Or you could still play your strategy, and we can kind of go back and forth, and we have the attrition game. But I don't know. That's how I feel because I think like Bushiroad is more focused on the experience of
Mhm.
how the games are being played versus like winning or losing necessarily.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
That's
winning
true.
results can be a byproduct because like to the extreme, but I don't know. I think that's kind of like my viewpoint on it. I hear what
Mhm.
you're saying though, but
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's kind of like my viewpoint on it to kind of make more sense of where
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, of
coming from.
course. I mean, that's why we're discussing on it on podcast is to kind of see like
Yeah.
what kind of opinions everyone has about like the meta right now. I would say
Yeah,
the
what were
nut. Yeah.
what were some of the other bands that people were saying? If you don't mind me asking.
I know for standard it was the bad. Um, and then I think a lot of the opinions, if I remember watching all these videos, a lot of them were saying that they should unrestrict the Saragon and the Luard restriction, and then a lot of them were saying that they should unrestrict Shoujo Doji again.
Yeah, those are fine.
Like, I mean,
I
they were
bet you.
saying that it doesn't really affect the meta anymore, so there's no reason to keep them banned.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Luard one, I'd wait one more wave, but Shorter Doji, I'd be cool with.
I mean, Luard is still consistent too, which is kind of the
Yeah,
scary part. So.
that's what I mean. Like, I'd wait at least one more wave
But
before
I'll
you
be
consider.
honest though, most of their opinions were like towards premium, not standard. Standard was a lot smaller. Premium was the one that everyone was a little upset about right now, and
Banning
that's
class makers.
yeah. But
Yeah,
that's a different story for a different day. Because if we get into that mess, that's just gonna be like a whole different mess that we have to talk about. Because
no, I agree.
everyone's like really upset with like crest decks right now. So, but I would say
I
mhm. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I understand. I can understand.
Like going back to
yeah.
the list though, some of the nice things though, other than Bat and Levy Dress like dominating the meta, some of the nice things, if I do have to say, is that Stride decks are actually finally topping again.
Yeah, for sure.
Shiranui, Harry, and Night Rose are all Stride decks, and they are actually doing relatively well. And I'm actually surprised to see Harry because that was a deck that a lot of the people were like, "Oh, this is like okay, but it's not a good deck."
Yeah, I mean, I can
So
kind of see it.
it's a very interesting. Like
Yeah.
looking at the list, like some of the people were running. It's funny they're actually running the Gear Chronicle card, the extra shield, and they're running the order card from the festival collection. So that's a very interesting mix. And then can't see the other Harry deck unfortunately. There's a Night Rose deck that top that runs, Night Rose stuff. Because
That is cool.
Night Rose with the hostage package,
They're
basically.
playing. You're right, David. They're playing that order. That is really cool.
Yeah, because
Game
they
of
need the
the
extra power, so I understand why they would do that.
The Night Rose or Harry?
Harry,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know.
they're running
that is
the card that
really
boost from back row.
Oh, that.
Not the worst idea because this deck does lack in that kind of power sense. So basically, they're running like no grade ones in this deck and all grade twos and threes, which I actually think it's not a bad idea because your deck is more focused on like cards that attack for numbers and they need like interceptors and such. So I guess it's not the worst idea in the world.
Yeah.
yeah. And what's it called?
Yeah.
If you do that, you just use the grade 2 in the back row, and then it gives the skill to itself. It's 15k booster. That's actually really intelligent.
Yeah.
Cool
And then they're
animation.
running the Steam Fighter, which actually gets an extra shield if you have a G Zone face up. And the funny thing is, that's from a Gear Chronicle deck set.
Yeah, good for that guy for cooking up something saucy. He's
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
some loop tier support cards too, which I find really cool.
Oh, you talking about the Togue?
No, I'm talking about the dragon.
Oh yeah, no, Dragon staple in Harry. You still run that
Yeah, I
Dragon.
didn't. That's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, because Dragon has a
Actually,
couple plays. So with the Dragon, you're usually going to put your Mana Core back in the deck or any of the pieces that you need. Such as he's running that sequence Dragon, which is decent in a hostage matchup. And then he can always like put cards back to recycle, such as Walk the Dark. So I think it's a relatively smart idea, to be honest. And yeah, I like this deck build. I actually think this is a deck build that I couldn't come up with when I was testing out Harry myself. So yeah, kudos to him for sure.
yeah. If I could afford 4 energy cyclers, I'd probably try this deck out for myself.
Actually, it's a really
For
nice
sure.
deck. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I mean, so Night Rose, I don't think like we have really much to talk about because the deck it's basically the hostage package. Which I think everyone's really aware of how that works. The Sure Nui one, this is interesting because I think this is the build that one of our guys at locals was playing with the defensive roar.
Hmm.
So this is very interesting in my opinion. So basically they're freeing up space that they used to run with the restander and they're just running more defensive options. And then because Shiranui can already pull out like 5 to 6 attacks per game, or potentially 7, they don't need more restanders. So I think it's a very good idea to run defensive roars and then just recycle cards back, and then just not losing the battle of cards in hand. So, and then they're also running the new order that came out, which basically reduces counterblast if you used it as a strike cost.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then the ability for the order is actually not bad too. Is if you have Shiranui Crest, basically you can pay energy 3 and then choose a unit with stealth in the card name without sentinels and then just call it to a rear guard. So it gives you another call, which is pretty good. Yeah, that Shiranui promo is actually pretty not bad. Like I was not looking into it, but it's a good option for Shiranui. And then obviously running the Shenri package is always good. So Shiranui's pretty solid as well.
Yeah.
Sure, Nui, I
Any
think it's
take?
always gonna be
Yeah,
good.
I mean any takes on the Stride decks topping? for Toronto?
It's just nice to see like Harry, like I know like Harry and Night Rose I think took a little bit late bloomers. They took a little bit of time to really like
Mhm.
break through, but I think because I wouldn't say like they're necessarily cookie cutter builds, but there's definitely different variations you can do with some of the open tech choice slots that you have.
Agreed.
And I think like it just seems like the play race has finally figured out a good formula, the right formula that all works together. And then with a little bit of a slower format, they strides can potentially prevail. Night Rose can be a defensive tank for you, and Harry has some nice high ceiling potential.
Yep.
But I think like this is good to see strides because I think if strides can thrive, then the meta I think can be in a good place. Unless strides are like the only thing that's thriving.
Then
So
that's a problem. Yeah.
yeah. So
Mhm.
it's a good balance. So I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
think overall we're seeing a good balance of like hyper some aggro decks, that does serve as an equalizer for the meta. Levy dress, being Levy dress, ODM being ODM, Raziel being Raziel, and then you still have some nice sleepers that are doing their thing.
You guys want
Yeah.
to quickly talk about premium format? I mean, I'm not like super knowledgeable on premium, but we can at least like see what topped, and then just kind of
Yeah,
give our input.
last thing on standard, shout outs to Naru Samurai for
Mhm.
topping.
Shout
Yeah.
out, congrats, man!
Yeah, he got his gift marker, Gabe.
Yay!
So looking into Toronto, so this is basically what base a lot of the new problem has came into premium is basically the new Myth Colony version of the deck. So Myth Colony has been a new problem in the format because the deck is so dominant. And it still counters the Crest deck, so now people are playing Myth Colony with the Ghidorah band.
Mhm.
So any takes on it? Well, I guess like you guys don't really would know how the deck would work, right?
Well, it just
Oh,
shows that
yeah.
despite the Gridora restriction, like there's still ways to kind of work with it, and
Yep.
you know, I think it's
So
still
the
present in the meta. But yeah, go ahead, Sean.
no, I think the deck is actually really freaking good, and people need to take notice of it. Just because the Mythiarch package has a grade 2
Yep.
that basically restands, so it
Yep.
could get off 5 attacks,
Yep.
and with the stride that minuses 10k from your Vanguard. So after the Ghidorah hit, people are looking for new ways to kind of innovate and take advantage of Mega Colony's way to force the game state one way, and they're using Persona Ride in that to just do that. And then if that doesn't work, they put the Geese in the main deck so they could play the Megiddo Zeroth Dragon Stride instead of Zoa, and then close out the game that way with like 8 to 9 attacks. It's actually really a cool play and a cool deck that I think people really need to take notice of, because just having the Mythiarch name, being able to extend your battle phase, and it has spot retire too. Like there's a lot of, the deck's always been versatile, and the fact that you can mix some of the D format cards with it only made it a little better.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you were playing classic Mega Colony, you'd be a fan of this. That
Yeah.
being said, I don't
No,
have
this is really
$30 to
good.
spend on a grade 2 hollow, non hollow.
Yeah, Mythiarch. I actually got to see someone play it yesterday. Last night.
Yeah.
It's actually really solid. Like the Mythiarch deck itself was actually very interesting to see because it has like stun or like it's basically the now current version of Mega Colonies, like what Mega Colonies should have been, is what Mythiarch was kind of to me because they were saying that Mythiarch has ways to like not let the opponent intercept, but also stun their rear guards, I believe. So it's a pretty cool concept deck, but the fact that they mixed it with Mega Colony is pretty unique from my opinion. But it actually works out because they do the same thing. So
Yeah, and when you Persona Ride, you could just search top 7 for a grade 3. So it's like you get to get your powerful grade 3s out that way instead of just using your Gridora skill that you stride into right away
and see, you
and
know
force
what?
your opponent to discard it.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. You just
No,
force your opponent to the card.
yeah.
That's about it.
So what I also thought was really funny is that as soon as the Myth Colony becomes a meta, like I guess like been more noticeable and it's been topping, basically there's 5 Myth Colony decks that topped in the top 16. So now we're not seeing the Crest, Harry's or Night Rose. Like it's a lot less. I mean, they're still there, but it's a lot less because these Myth Colony decks are kicking their butts. And what was interesting is that someone brought a Chrono Jet deck, the Crest Jack, and made top 16 with it. And I've actually tried this deck, and it's actually really good. The main essential problem was that the other Crest decks were so dominant that this deck didn't seem like good. But I guess like it has a good matchup against the Myth Colony decks, is what I'm assuming. So maybe that's why it's topping. I can't like really give a full analysis, but there's also a Glendios deck that topped. I don't know if you guys saw.
I always
Yeah,
see like in
Glendio sounds
premium.
cool.
What's always interesting with premium is that there always seems to be like a very random deck that just tops. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah, because people don't
Pretty
know
good.
what it does, so they get like
Exactly.
curveball. Yeah. So I mean, it's always interesting, and seeing Glendios top was actually pretty funny. I was like, damn, Glendios out of nowhere, and then there was a Susano deck that topped as well, and it
The
was
OTT.
actually in the top 4.
I think OTT is pretty underrated.
Yeah, OTT still has a lot of good cards in it, right? I just think right now it's not meta relevant because I think it's a little bit slower is what I noticed with the Susano deck because I had one of the guys at locals play it because he said that he really likes OTTs and he wanted to like try to make this good deck good after like I guess like after the top. So yeah, I mean, I experienced it. I think like the deck has some flaws, but I think overall, if they have the right support kicking in, I think like Susano slash OTT decks could be really good. But yeah, everything else is kind of like a lot of Myth Colony or Night Rose decks.
Shout out the Raging Form player. That was
Yeah,
cool.
there's the one Raging Form guy just
Yeah, there you go.
randomly sitting on the top 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. His deck's pretty cool too. It's not there's some cool tech cards that I need to look into.
There's tech cards.
Yeah, he plays like one ofs that I'm like, oh cool, that's a card that I've never thought of.
Okay.
Yeah. He plays
Interesting.
Transient Revenger Masquerade, which normally works with Lost in the Dark, but
Interesting.
like you're able to create cards and columns that your opponent can't guard. And he plays the Cleric Grade 3 Searcher to, I guess, filter out for his Slay Hex and Raging Forms and all that.
Listen, that card's actually good. That card's always been good ever since it came out.
Yeah, I know it's good, but like, what's it called? The fact that the deck's so Revenger focused is that, that you don't necessarily get that option.
I mean, that's fair.
Like, and then because he already plays the Demon World Castle, which turns out any card into 2 cards.
Mhm.
So I guess that makes up for it, but that's also not a Revenger right away. So it's just a lot of like cool non-Revenger cards.
So I guess like premium's like kind of not gonna be in my topic for say, but if you guys have any intakes after I do, you guys are welcome to take some premium intakes if you want. Premium's just not my category, so I can't talk about it too much. I know some of it still, I have a good knowledge of it, but there's still like stuff I can't fully analyze on this format. So,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
but I know
don't
that
know
Myth
if
Colony is the new chief of town, is what they say.
Man, I just want to see NLK top more. That's all.
But let's go into France. We'll go ahead and talk about standard, and the results are kind of surprising.
Pretty different. Pretty different.
Very different.
Would you say that like meta-wise, because obviously we play the same format, but like between Europe and like us here, like North America area, like do you think like the meta and playstyle is probably really different or mindset is different?
I would say so. Just because like if you look at the sheer new builds that they're running, like I'm checking the first and second places, and they all have like the same build. So my assumption is that they have a very small community within themselves that they communicate with the best players, and basically they all have like they share the ideas to each other, and they're like, oh, this is why it worked, and you should give this a try. And like it's like
Or
locals. Yeah, like they all
there's
communicate.
a lot more
Mhm.
there's a lot more cohesion across the EU, I
Yeah.
guess.
So I feel like that if they have a good idea, they kind of proceed with it. Like the Shiranui is a very good example because you can see in the top like one, two, three, four, five. The five players in the top cut are all like Shiranui except for the one bad deck.
Hmm.
So I feel like that they kind of shared the ideas, and obviously leverage dress is still there, but like I feel like the new Shiranui deck has a very good matchup against Levy Dress, or Levy Dress lost to like Raziel is my guess. Because I see the two Raziel decks in the top eight, so and it's possible Raziel can actually beat the Levy Dress matchup if they go first. And the Levy Dress, or sorry, the Raziel deck, are all running the Teopop build,
Hmm.
which the Teopop
Let's
build is very aggressive. Oh, there's a build that runs Biscottis in it. Simon's gonna be disappointed.
No. It's funny.
It was funny
It's an
because
inside
we had that
it's
conversation.
yeah, it's an inside joke, guys. We're not saying like it's bad necessarily. It's just more like this is an inside joke with one of our with
Yeah.
we eat
Simon.
biscotti. Play it. No, just kidding.
But there's a Chris Rain deck that made top, which is pretty nice.
Cool.
Ava was in the top cut as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Uh,
Ava's I know like a fan favorite.
yeah, I think it's just a area. I think it's an area perspective on what they prefer meta, is my guess. Because let me check the one that we had in England. This one was a bit more balanced, I guess. But yeah, I would say I think the meta is a little bit different per area as well, is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like.
Well, turnout I assume in EU is it's a lot more.
Mhm.
It's a lot smaller because it's a top 16 to top 32.
Right, right. And just happened to be those
Nonetheless,
people made the top 16 versus the top 32. Because I feel like if it was the top 32, results could have been a bit more different.
I
But
feel
I
like with the
still, yeah.
Shiranui, I feel like those Shiranui players because maybe France doesn't have a lot of like major events, so those are just the Shiranui players that just had them for like a long time. They're like, oh, okay, oh regionals, let's go. Let me just play Shiranui then because I don't
I mean,
care
that
about it.
that easily could have been it, to
I
be
don't know.
honest.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing BS out there.
And you know
But
what's funny
congrats to
is
all the players.
the guy that made first place. If you look at his deck, he doesn't run Sanctitude.
He probably forgot.
He runs like three regular perfect cards.
And just no Sanctitude.
Yeah, no Sanctitude.
4 Roar. He plays 4 Defensing Roar. I don't know. I don't necessarily take it too seriously because it's like maybe he has a reason for it, but I always just assume it's like a case of like, oh, maybe he just lost his the day before and he didn't know where it was and he's like, ah, screw it. I'll just
And
What
play
card?
if I give another feedback, the guy that made third place, or sorry, second place Shiranui, he also doesn't run a Sanctitude, and he doesn't even run the correct one, the stealth one.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe we should get an interview with these guys and understand, get some insight.
This guy also doesn't rank Sanctitude, and he's fourth place. and he luckily this guy runs the stealth one, which is interesting. I wonder if there's like no reason why I would not run a Sanctitude though. They all don't
I
run
can't,
Sanctitudes, all five of them or all four of them. That's crazy.
I can't think of any reason really.
Yeah, that's I'm checking the next guy on the list too. See, this guy runs a Sanctitude, so it's just the guys on the top, like the top five, I guess. That's not running Sanctitude, which is very interesting. I mean, I can't judge them, but I'm just like, I wonder what the reasoning would be. Yeah, and this guy also does racing too, so that's very interesting.
I don't know. Maybe we can check in with our local players next time we see them and be like, hey, is there
Yeah, I
any
think
sense
this
of
is
this?
a
Am
really
I
good
weird?
question to ask.
Like, am I weird? Am I crazy? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it was very interesting, but Yeah, so sure, Nui's dominating the format, and then Raziel, and then Levy Dress similar numbers. So I would say like, except for the sure Nui, it's kind of cookie cutter, the meta wise. And then Ava and Chris Rain topping, but I feel like Chris Rain always has been on the list of topping, because if I remember, like there was a guy that technically made top 32 in Chicago with Chris Rain, but unfortunately he got caught in the deck check and he didn't pass, and then unfortunately he didn't make top 32, but he technically was in the top 32.
I mean, he made it through. I mean, it was featured on my channel.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to get
So that's
the
yeah,
profile from him.
yeah, so I feel like Chris Rain can make top. Like it's a deck that potentially can make the top list.
So like I said,
Mhm.
like if Chris Rain is allowed to do everything she wants, she can. Chris Rain kind of sits in that like early aggro potential deck, but the fact is it's a crit enabled Vanguard. Like it can, it's not based on your opponent being at grade 3. Like you can go first and then just nail him with a big crit, and then just keeps hitting him for a big swings. So it's a very swingy tempo deck.
Yeah.
So it's really it. It's just I think it just dies to matchups. Like if it just faces Levy Dress, like you just say GG unless you sack.
Yeah. And in standard sacking is a very high possibility.
Well, it's not a high possibility necessarily. It's more of like it's just highly impactful when it happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say the list is pretty like it's there. Like I think the only interesting thing is the sheer new players, but other than that, yeah,
It's kind of like
makes
I
sense.
mean they love Shiranui there.
Yeah, they really love that trial deck, and that's probably why Sherry Nui got hit like 2 times.
Man, can you imagine investing hard into Shiranui like over a year ago? And man, it is paying off.
It's paying off.
A good
Like
chunk.
Sure Nui was worth the $80 that you spent on your deck sets. So yeah, it's the one deck that's actually worth it. So going into let's go ahead and hop onto premium real quick.
Mhm.
The premium list is top 8 because the participation probably was a lot lower. Harry, Night Rose, pretty solid list. The Myth Colony deck, and then the Raging form, as I see, and then 2 Fenrir's. I don't know if this is the loop version or just the regular version of Fenrir, because I know that the loop version still exists.
Find out.
Looking at the list, they're not the loop version, I believe, per se, because they're not running that stand, unless that stand is banned. Oh, that rhymed.
You know, Taro.
Them bars.
Interesting. And then one thing that really caught my eyes is Maelstrom.
It's the loop version because they play that grade 1 that's actually.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you guys know there's a Maelstrom deck that topped in
And
premium?
premium? Let's find out.
It's actual Maelstrom, not Davis. It's Maelstrom.
Clay would be really happy about that.
Clay's a
Let's see.
Cardfight King is a Davis guy though.
Okay.
Like
Maelstrom.
Yeah, Maelstrom. Maelstrom.
Okay. It's like, okay, I see you. All right.
Yeah, that's literally what I gotta say too. Okay, I see you.
Yeah,
All right.
Maelstrom.
Well, also, to be fair, Aquaforce has like the most broken stride ever for a non history deck for where they could just generate Excel markers out of nowhere. So
Oh, you talking about that one sprite that generates
the Excel.
Yeah, he runs one of it. Is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so I think Maelstrom has some potential.
Yeah,
okay.
he can like ride into Maelstrom, create an Excel marker, go into Stride to get another Excel marker. Yeah, I mean makes sense. And then I think a lot of their stuff restands, I believe, on like on their own. And then Maelstrom's the Stride skill still goes off.
Yeah,
If
and
it's a
Glory is
5
just
mana
such a
crit,
broken card to begin with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, Glory is really good.
Dang, if this thing is like a main phase Stride at some point, This might be like actually like top tier. Just glory into whatever stride you want.
Well,
Because
would it
triple drive
copy
is,
though?
no, it doesn't have to copy. Like even if you just use the skill before, like the axe skill, and then you just stride into whatever
Oh, I
that main.
see. It's because you're talking about the stride where the number of Maelstrom in the soul matters.
Yeah.
Ah.
No, the
Oh,
grade
that's
three, the
interesting.
grade three. Sorry. Yeah.
So the fourth wave only is your opponent cannot call cards from hand or G zone to guardian circles grade less than the number of Maelstrom cards in soul.
Damn,
So
that's good.
basically, if you can get four in the soul, they can't G guard. That's kind of nuts.
It is kind of nuts. That's that's Zoa on crack.
And the best part is it can flip a G zone face up. It gets a 5k and a crit for two if your G zone with Maelstrom is two or more. So if you have like more Maelstroms face up, it gets plus it gets +5 and a crit every time if you do.
Okay, I'm not gonna sleep on this deck. I kind of want to look into it.
It actually looks really interesting.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Yeah, I think this deck is really fun. Just looking at it, I was like, oh, this is a very interesting list.
And there's some good synergy. Like what's it called? That that grade 2 Elder Moss, you could kind of bust one, put a card from Maelstrom, and it's drop from the drop into your soul.
Yeah. So basically, you're
That
gonna use the Maelstrom cards to stride, and then you're gonna put them in the soul so you can activate the ability. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
yeah.
So
Okay,
yeah, Maelstrom
respect.
deck. Yeah, it's a lot of respect. The one Maelstrom guy, and I think he's probably the one Maelstrom deck in a long time that topped in premium, I believe.
Yeah.
And then there's the one Raging Form. We're seeing Raging Form every tournament.
Don't sleep. Been saying.
So Shao Paladin's there.
Yeah.
We already know what the Harry Crest deck and the Night Rose Crest deck does, so that one's kind of a given.
Those are like expected results, like we know. It's like yeah.
So one thing I did notice with the Crest decks though, like I'm not gonna say Night Rose because Night Rose, even if they don't hit, even if they don't ride their crest, Night Rose is still good. But the problem is like Harry is very 50-50. If they hit their crest, they're the best deck in the format. If they don't hit the crest, they're like the worst deck to play into.
Yeah. That's
So
usually the feedback.
yeah,
The feedback I hear.
and same thing with the Jet deck as well. Is if the Jet hits their crest, it's a really good deck. But if it doesn't, then it's not a good deck into the meta. So I just feel like that's like the biggest essential problem with the crest decks. I'm gonna say other than Night Rose is they lose so much power that they become like not a very good relevant deck. And I feel like that my personal take is that that's probably why Crest is not really good for the format because the deck builds get so simplified. But obviously, once again, this is a story for a different day, right?
Yeah. Because it's like, I don't know, like with Crest decks, it's also in the mirror match. It just sucks because there's that anxiety like way back in the day. I mean, way before like the format, where it's always that luck that we all hate, where like, man, my opponent actually rode all his ideal targets and I didn't, so I'm now at a disadvantage. I'm probably gonna lose because of it. So it's like, oh damn, my opponent got the crest and I didn't. I lose.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
was also
played.
out of my behind.
My buddy Chris kind of forced me to sit down on Saturday night because I stopped by Curios just to say hi to players there, and there was like no one there, and Chris was like, David, sit down. I was like, why? And then I sit down and he gives me a deck. He's like, play me. I was like, what? And I was like exhausted coming out. And I was just like looking at it, like, what cancer did you give me? And he gave me the Crest gear deck, and then he was holding onto a Crest Harry deck. I was like, do I really have to play this matchup? He's like, yes. So I missed my
Right.
Crest, and he got his Crest, and he won. And I was like, this is
That's
why.
the playtest.
Yeah, it's just like, what playtest are we doing? Can we just ride into our Crest to start off if you want to playtest?
Yeah, that's the playtest.
Yeah. He wanted to see if he rode into his Crest or not.
That's funny.
But going
I mean,
back
if you
to
really want to stress test it, just play with no crest versus someone with the crest and see how you do.
I mean, that's fair. But going back to standard, right? So what do you guys overall think about the standard and the premium results in France?
It's cool.
France, yeah, France is good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like Shiranui, they love Shiranui there. The top 4 decks I'm just seeing here, top 5 decks, I mean, yeah, that's pretty predictable. I know Ava is very popular in Europe, same thing with Chris Rain. So it's kind of like, yeah, I kind of expected all this.
So do you think the meta is reliant on like the area?
It could be that. I mean, because like I said, I mean, I don't know, like you guys, and just so you guys know, I'm just kind of speculating here, but I'm guessing because I don't know how many like major events are in France, and I don't know if those guys travel out or not. But it's like, I would think because Shiranui was like the top tier guy for like a long time. That I just feel like all these Shiranui guys that are topping are like long time Shiranui players, so they just kept playing the same deck, and when the regionals come once a year, and they didn't find a reason to change. And it's top 16, so I mean we just don't know. But like it just shows that Shiranui still really good.
Mm.
Like area can be, I mean, because like our local environments could be influencing each other, just like in our like area here in like Virginia, and Sean with Texas. So I don't know. Like I think there is, but the question is to what extent is it? Because I know with Europe, it's Europe versus like North America, and I know even here in the U.S. we have different regional areas where off discussion we have discussions with people from different local areas, and there's a lot of commonality, but I think there's also a lot of differences in philosophy. So it's hard to say. Like I'd say like Japan is very different from us, like in the EN.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I would draw like a clear line to say, yeah, I think there's a much different mindset they have, but I feel like there's a lot of commonality as well.
Mm.
I don't know. It's hard to really say.
What about you, Sean? What's your intake on France's results?
It's like premium's cool. Standard's gonna standard. I think Shiranui, don't sleep on Shiranui. That I think that deck has a lot of key support pieces, and especially people taking out bracing angel ladder, like we've talked about earlier in the show. It's probably like a good reason for Shiranui to still kind of be played, because that was like the one out to everybody. If you time it correctly, kind of just win the next turn because it shuts them down so much. So just look into it. There's ways to play around it. There's ways to play with it, and get maximum value out of your cards. But other than that, all the other decks look cool. Chris Rain, cool. Varga, cool. Bat, always there.
It's cool. It's
Mhm.
cool.
So I guess
Yeah.
one more to kind of throw in since we have a little bit of time, right? So one thing I did want to talk about is the most recent Deluxe Cup that actually happened in Japan. So if you guys go into VG Paradox and look into tournaments for Deluxe Cup, there is one that recently happened for the current set in Japan. And this is the first tournament that they're not doing what do you call it? Diversity Cup, or not Diversity Cup, the Diversity Cut. Sorry.
Mhm.
So what you see here is the results when they don't do diversity cuts. It is teams, so take it with a little bit of grain of salt. But
Heavy dose of Himalayan kosher salt.
yeah, so it's funny because the team that won first place is Team Waifu. Their team name is actually Pay to Win, which I mean they're all playing waifu decks, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's Balsagra, Odium, and the lock deck, the
Oh, Astrea, Palutena.
Arceria. Yeah, yeah. So that's the team that won because they're all like waifu decks. Boss Sagra, Odium, and the new lock deck.
Damn, I love Bob Sagra so much, but I finally got priced out, and I'm tapped out. I
Yeah,
love as much as I love it.
you and everyone's mom is gonna play that deck. So
Dude, Mirai is my favorite character too. I'm so sad. You have no idea.
I've seen some builds though that don't run some of the overpriced cards right now at all. Like one of the old grade twos. Like some people just don't run it straight out.
No, I have most of the cards, but it's just like I don't want to spend all this money on this new deck that like when I could have Magnolia and probably do just as fine.
All right,
mean,
then sell me your Baf Sagra cards.
No, I love that girl so much. You have no idea. Waifu
Then-
forever.
Okay, then use that money to like go buy one special rarity of her to put in a frame and buy a commission and artwork of her or something.
Oh well.
So
That's cute.
looking at this result though, obviously one thing that we can notice is Boss Sagra is in almost every team.
Queen.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like-
and then Levy Dress is also still like relevant in the meta for set 7.
Yep.
And then I would say if I pick out one more, is the lock deck is being played as well. Not in every deck, but like there is like little bits of it everywhere.
hmm
So I would say like those would be the decks that people are currently playing in Japan. Although it is teams, so it is a bit harder to analyze the results. But I would definitely say those are just something I'm seeing as a result that people are playing currently in Japan. Which meaning most likely like obviously the meta is very different from Japan and here, but Boss Sagra is definitely being a dominant deck in the meta. And then the lock deck is being heavily played as well. But that one, I don't know if it's because it's a waifu deck or it's a actual good deck. But other than that, they're all one-ofs afterwards because obviously it's teams. So
Yeah, it's hard to say.
yeah, Odium's still being played. Because some of the Odium cards that are coming out in set 7 is actually decent. So, I mean, Odium is like still kind of being played, which is interesting because I feel like that a lot of people would have dropped out of Odium at set 7, but I guess not. I mean, waifu's waifu, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, waifu tags.
Wife attacks.
But yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to kind of talk about this result just because this is the first time that Japan's not doing diversity cut. Sorry. So I think this was kind of big for Japan to not do diversity cut.
Yeah, I guess. I just think we'll like to be quite honest with you, David, like as much as I like looking at Japanese results just to get like an idea for builds and what's coming good, just with how their tournament structure is, I don't think it affects me as a player as much as it should. That's just my opinion. And we could go
Yeah.
into this like some whole other time. Maybe you guys think like this too, but it's just like I like the list. I like what they do. I like looking at like what's topping, what's not. But it's just like I have to take their tournaments with a grain of salt just because our tournament structure is just so different.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what I said in the beginning is we just gotta take it as a grain of salt. But I only wanted to look at the list just because like two things is obviously we get to look at the meta a little bit like to see what people are playing. But what I was more like wanting to talk about is Japan stopped doing diversity cut because that was one of my bigger complaints with the Japanese tournament structure is doing diversity cuts. Because that it doesn't give the best results for a ban list. Because people in Japan, like the tournament structure in Japan, they force a ban list depending on the results after diversity cut. So I just thought that was a little bit like not good for the ban list when you're basing it off of a diversity cut. Because diversity cut is filtering out all the good decks in diversity cut. So obviously when Japan's like, oh well, there's nothing to cut down because we don't see this performing a lot, then I just feel like that's not the correct result. So I just thought that it was kind of nice that they didn't do diversity cut for the first big tournament that they have for the year. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's
I
why I
can
wanted to
agree.
mention it. Yeah, that's why I wanted to mention it. And obviously with the diversity cut, we saw the results, but it's like 7 Balsagras out of the 8 teams that topped. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
so this will be more. We would have a definitely more effective ban list once the once Japan is like not doing diversity cuts and they're seeing like certain decks. Like a good example would be Balsagra, because that she's gonna be such a dominant deck in Japan for a while. So before like BCS kicks in, I feel like that she's gonna definitely get cut from the ban list, or there's gonna be a deck that counters it, which most likely there is gonna be a ban list set before BCS starts, is my guess. And I think that's why Japan's probably not doing their diversity cut so they can get better results. Because I know that there was a lot of players complaining about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, like I definitely get that.
Yeah.
By the way, David, you said diversity cut like 10 times. That's good.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it's specified. Because
Diversity cut.
some people don't know what it is, so
Yeah. I mean, it's not really relevant to us, but I
it's
can
not.
definitely
Yeah,
understand some of the concerns people may have about it.
yeah, it's not
We'll
relevant
see.
to us, but it affects our ban list. And unfortunately, the Japanese ban list does move over to us as well. So that's why I think it's a problem. If it doesn't affect us, it's not a problem, but it does.
I think they're gonna start with banning Drag Beta and Boss Sagra because that's too freaking oppressive.
Or just make it a
They're
one-off.
probably
And then
Just
the
one-off.
gonna hit a certain card like as
yeah,
a, what do you call it, choice restriction.
I think
But
putting Valor into run's also not a bad idea,
mhm.
but
But yeah, Ball Soccer is going to be pretty dominating once we get in the US, is what I'm thinking. I'll be honest, I kind of did underestimate the deck just a little bit. But
Off
like
flavor. Yeah.
obviously, like looking at the results and actually reading through the cards, it is a bit more devastating than I thought. Um,
Like
is it
I kept saying it.
is it going to be a tier 0 deck? I don't think so. Because there's a lot of decks that still keep it in check. And that's also one of the reasons why I don't want the Bat deck to necessarily be cut yet. Because there's like stupid decks like Balsagra that's still topping, and we need decks like that to just kind of keep it in check. So, yeah, I mean, that's just what I think for now.
Well, one way to deal with a few decks that's dominating the meta is to introduce something else.
Yep, possible future Blangdemire.
Now,
We. Mhm.
side note, just because this could open up a huge can of worms as far as discussion, but just as a brief like impression, because going off of that, right? Because like the meta has shifted since set three. Like we had Doji in a very fast format to now a more like paceful mid-range format with Levy and Raziel. Saga is gonna shake up the meta for sure. Maybe potentially down the road more like Youthberg and Nolia and such. Do you guys kind of sense power creep like for the game in a good or a bad way? Because I will just say, like on my take on it, like power creep. I mean, obviously, if you compare it to Divine versus Overdress, like obviously there is power creep, but I think Bushiroad has been doing a pretty good job for the most part at kind of like keeping it steady.
Yeah.
Well, so like the power inflation has been pretty steady. So like there's still flexibility. There's not been a tier zero deck, I don't think yet.
Mm-mm.
In the game, we've been pretty close a few times, but it's been stable enough so that other decks people still feel compelled to play other varieties of decks and not feel pressured to play the top tier decks. But what do you guys think, like as far as the power creep spectrum is concerned right now, leading up to this point and looking forward?
Go ahead, Sean.
it's getting close to V in my opinion. But like you said, they keep introducing new decks to kind of keep these older decks in check, which is kind of how V like got out of control. So
Yeah,
I think
it's always
after
been
this
concerning.
deluxe arc is because they're reintroducing all these new characters and reintroducing all these old characters. I think every deck they're trying to make every deck somewhat relevant, somewhat competitive that like people have fan favoritism for.
Mhm.
So I think we just like kind of reach there. Um, Yeah, I just really think they need to introduce more defensive options or say that you could play more than one blitz order in a turn, just to
Yeah,
give
and
decks some
that's
more side
actually
effects.
a really good idea too. Like you could just make some modification for the rules.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
honestly,
I
like
like
being
that.
able to play two blitz orders actually might not be the worst idea. Because blitz orders are really strong, but the main limitation of blitz orders is that you can only activate it once per turn.
Hmm.
So
yeah,
it's
because
like this is like you have twin cast. You can still technically if you use twin cast from your hand, that's a 10k that you can use for free. With the interceptor, that's 15k. But because like you have a sanctitude in your hand, you're forced to pitch that 10k for a sanctitude instead. So I mean, if I was able to activate both, I think that would have beneficial me more in certain turns or like certain games I had. So yeah, I think that would be an interesting ruling to have, though.
yeah, and be real here. You know, like I played throughout V. I played pretty much throughout Overdress, minus small breaks here and there. They cut down the shield value of grade ones to 5K instead of
Yeah.
the 10 that they had in V, and I'm really starting to notice it now more
Hmm.
than ever. Like I know, like Bushiroad, like gives a lot of these decks insane card draw and like filtering abilities. Like pretty much every deck actually that's relevant right now. But it's just like you have like a 7 to 10 card hand, and then the only thing in your hand that you could do anything with is like triggers on your opponent's turn.
Yeah. Or
So,
perfect guards that you kept.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
or
feel like
perfect guard.
there's yeah, it really makes like the feel I get because I remember on Deer Days I was playing a little bit of like Vintage Fight, and I'm like, yeah, the game was a lot more predictable back then because I remember the constant thing I always asked was like how many cards in hand, and I can actually predict when I'm gonna like go for game. Like I know exactly how much what you need to guard, and you can't do anything about it. Where, now with D format, it's a lot more unpredictable.
I was gonna
There's
say,
no certainty.
if I can add something to what you were just saying, Gabe, I remember, I don't know if some people remember, but there was a player named Zach. He had a YouTube channel as well, Zach. So one
Yeah.
of the things like I really was like, this is kind of cool, right? Is that he had a Spike Brother deck that he was using because he was a Spike only player. He always predicted because you were saying that it was easier to predict back then, which I kind of agree because he's like, how many cards do you have in your hand? You say 11. All right, I'm cooking you this turn. He goes break ride into
Vanguard.
the Dudley card, and then he just kind of goes in. I'm like, God damn! And I had 11
Yeah.
cards.
I mean, me and him used to do that.
Yeah.
Me and him used to do that a lot because I played Spike 2 with him and then Aquaforce as well in the days of Aquaforce with multi-attack. Like, I pretty much know. Like,
Well,
even
truth
back my, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Hmm?
truth be told, like you could predict your opponent's hand like after 5 or 6 turns because you see enough drive checks, you see the cards that they play. Like,
I'll be
and
honest. I'll be
yeah,
honest. I don't do a good job at memorizing
Yeah. I'm kind of
Alliance
at that
plans.
age state as well, to be honest.
Well,
really,
I
when I'm
never
locked
really.
in, I'm locked in. I could tell you your whole hand probably in 5 or 6 turns if it's small enough. But it's just like
I think it's
I
like
don't
when
know.
we lead into the later games, like the later stages, then I'll start like seeing if you were dry or not because I kind of just keep track of other things. But I think it's like also because of the ride deck, there's more redundancy with your deck. You're pretty much your deck's gonna run predictably every single game. Like it almost, I hardly ask people how many cards they have in their hand a lot of times because it's like I'm gonna do the same exact thing anyway. Like it's it's whether you got it or not
Yeah.
as far as the means to guard me or not. It's not going to change. Like if you're like, oh, maybe if you play a stride deck now, it could change whether like you go into something else or not. So there's a little bit more lines, but the lines of play like in standard right now is kind of like linear. It's very
Yeah.
linear. Like it's basically a stress test with each other. And
Stress test.
I don't know. It's interesting that Sean does bring up like because I didn't play the second half of V, so I could definitely like there is a bubble right now, the power creep bubble, and it could be ready to burst soon. But I think as long as people are excited about the new stuff that's coming out and they keep redoing it, I just don't know. I mean, the fear with power creep overall is just if once the bubble bursts, that means we have to do a format reset. And I will honestly say, like the format reset in V for sure pushed me away from the game, almost for
Oh,
good. Like format resets are very it can be very. I mean, we've been through it multiple times, so it's like we've always. I'm not trying to like doom post or whatever, but like, um, I know that's something that people would think about, but I don't know. I'm just gonna stay in the present and just enjoy what comes out. And if
Yeah.
it's a resurgence of older decks, I say, hey, let's just see where it goes.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. I mean, I think Bushiroad is doing a really good job with the power creep as well. Like from my personal take as well. Like I don't think like they're overdoing it.
They're keeping things in a spectrum.
Yeah.
Like when new support comes out, it's like they just add a few things so you can kind of keep your main core that you invested in. You don't have to throw everything away and build a new deck. It is a more upfront cost, but we talked about it before. But at least you kind of you do get kind of a return investment in a way. And like I said, before I was coming back, like a few years ago, I did hear about strides being reintroduced, and I got scared. I'm like, okay, cool. So is the standard is just going to be stride format again, just like premium? I'm like, I'm good. But they've been keeping strides in check for the most part. They
I
calmed
mean,
down with lock.
other than Shiranui, they actually been doing relatively good job after that because they realized their
Yeah,
mistake with Shiranui. So
lock was a mistake, but even then, I know people freaked out and said Vanguard's going to die because of lock, but they've tamed it. It's been tamed, in my opinion.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's been 12 years since Locke was introduced.
I
Yeah,
mean,
so
look, there's Lock coming out next set, and it's if you read the card, it's already been like they filtered it enough where we're like, okay, it's not as bad.
hey
Yeah,
guys.
and usually it's only one walk per turn. So
Yeah. All right, guys. I don't know if we're gonna
Yeah,
wrap up soon.
I think we
But
should wrap up. It's a good
that's all.
timing
Everything.
actually. So I would say, let me start off with mine. Shout outs to JP's Curtain Calls, for sponsoring us with cards and dices that well, I haven't got yet, but I know Gabe has his on the way. Make sure you guys use the code lowercase AMVG to get discounts on singles, um, splits, and dices as well. Shout outs to Blue 52 Cafe, which my buddy owns in the Philippines. He is actually sending me merches and coffee beans from all the way from the Philippines. So shout outs to him, and I'm definitely excited to try out after trying that demo last time. And then shout outs to Boba Hero and Kira Caverns at Virginia. As well, they're locals around our area, and we are very gifted to have a lot of the locals in our area compared to other locations. So shout outs for that. And I'll call it a day so I can give Gabe and Sean some windows of shout outs.
Yeah. So just shout outs to JP from JP's Curtain Call. I'm another affiliate with him. He's been doing really great with working with us to give us some nice deals on some tools we need and everything. He's going to provide me some accessories that I can't wait to show off to you guys. I'm really excited for it. And no, he is not giving it to us for free. I am paying for it. He is giving me, like affiliate deal and stuff, but it's not really that significant. Before anyone wants to, say that, but he's a definitely a great guy. Great deals on cards. So definitely use the code that David mentioned for his, if you want a good deal. And just shout outs to everyone in our locals. Just keep riding and thriving, and just have a good time. Good shot.
thanks to David and Gabe. Dominic Paris 21. I am Vanguard. It's always a blessing to talk Vanguard with these two. I say it every week, but it's the truth. Love these guys so much. Blessing to continue playing Cardfight Vanguard. Shouts to Commander Jaime and Team Ham. They always got me back into the game. And without them pushing me, I wouldn't have any of these moments that I'm experiencing right now. So good on them. Thanks, guys.
Oh, one more thing. Shout outs to Gabe, and it's his birthday today, so happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday! Did not know.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Make sure you guys like the video, share the video if you like it, and we'll be back next week with a different topic. All right, bye guys.
Peace.